The steel mill in Lorain, Ohio, shut down. The Buick City complex in Flint, Michigan, a ghost town. Shoemaking in Brockton, Massachusetts, gone. What do these jobs have in common? They all went to China. Hi kids, I'm Mr. Schlotkins, and today's lesson is on China outsourcing. For most of history, China was the richest country in the world, but over a century of being raped by white people turned it into a third world country. Today we hear the giant sucking sound of our jobs disappearing, only they're not going to Mexico, they're going to China. In 2015, the trade deficit was $366 billion. What goes around comes around. Okay kids, let's get the history lesson out of the way. In 1911, the Manchu dynasty was overthrown. This was partially a reaction to the Manchus' inability to keep the white colonial powers from raping their country. The leader of the movement was Sun Yat-sen, and he was the first president of the new Republic of China. He wanted to make China a democracy after an undecided length of tutelage. And of course, during that period, he would be Lord and Master. Due to power struggles, Sun's reign didn't last long, and China descended into chaos. Out of the storm came two factions: the nationalists of Chiang Kai-shek and the Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong. Chiang just wanted to be dictator. Mao was inspired by the revolution in Russia, and he and some friends formed the Chinese Communist Party. Therefore, Mao was portrayed as an angry Soviet puppet. That's ass wrong. The truth is, he extended a hand in friendship to the U.S. He wanted China to become industrialized. He envisioned a mutual relationship that combined China's seemingly unlimited workforce with America's know-how. Both got money from the Soviet Union, but Chiang had married into one of the richest families in China. So he was the darling of America's upper class. And to enhance his image, he converted to Christianity and got baptized. It was all window dressing, kids. In fact, Stalin didn't even like Mao's brand of communism. The Soviet model was based on industrial workers in the city. Mao focused on the farmers in the country. Mao appealed to the people. He had an army of volunteers. Chiang conscripted people from the Americanized cities he controlled and had them trained by Nazis. He sent his armies out into the country to find Mao and kill peasants, since they were possible recruits for his army. The Japanese eventually made 2/5 of China part of their empire. Mao asked Chiang for a truce so they could fight the foreign invaders together, but Chiang wouldn't hear of it. His chief aim was to exterminate Mao and let the Americans deal with the invaders. And that's what happened. John Stuart Service was an American diplomat sent in to observe Mao and interview the Chinese peasants. After the Pearl Harbor attack, he reported from Chongqing. The Chinese were beside themselves with pleasure. To them, this meant assurance of victory. After that, they sat back and didn't do much. After we dispatched Japan, Chiang turned his guns on Mao. After WW2, the American public didn't want more war. Neither did President Truman. So no troops were sent to help Chiang. Instead, we sent them money, and Chiang grubbed for money. Winston Churchill's pet name for him was Chiang Cash My Check. But money doesn't win wars. good strategy does. Mao drove Chiang off the mainland and onto Taiwan, a little island to the south. China's mandate of heaven went to Mao, but he had that darn communist label. So to Americans, the mandate of heaven went to this Americanized chink on a small island. But the Chinese are yellow people. Certainly Mao couldn't defeat the establishment's boyfriend Chiang without help. Surely he got his help from the Soviet Union. Therefore Mao was branded a Soviet puppet, and the Americans sent to observe Mao were accused of being communist spies. This was the backdrop of Joe McCarthy's witch hunt. And China was seen as a Soviet puppet state. In reality, during the Cold War, the two countries hated each other. After World War II, America saw a rise in the middle class and an economic boom along with the baby boom. Income tax reached 94% at one point, but anyone willing to work 8 hours a day could afford to live comfortably. Working conditions improved with OSHA. Lyndon Johnson's Great Society increased benefits for the old and injured, and much of the items you bought had this label. This is the world in which the baby boomers grew up. Again, Mao extended his hand to America in friendship, but Truman brushed him off. But President Nixon was intrigued with Mao's proposal of combining America's intellect with China's workforce. He opened the door with his famous goodwill trip to China in 1972. In 1979, America restored diplomatic relations with China. By this time, the oldest of the baby boomers were adults. They were running the companies. They were calling the shots. And they wanted more. They sent out jobs to China to take advantage of its slave labor wages. The Chinese had no unions. The corporate pigs didn't have to worry about safety or benefits or a 40-hour work week. Meanwhile, over here, the average schmucks lost their jobs. They would have to work low-paying, dorky teenager jobs to keep up with a mortgage and to make the minimum credit card payments. Those unable to find jobs were lazy. If the bank foreclosed, the newfound vagrant chose to be homeless. To the baby boomers, China was a cash cow, and they continue to milk it. They don't even care China is still communist, as long as they keep getting their cheap shit. Then they hire Madison Ave to tell us we can't live without it. The baby boomers, my parents, your grandparents, had it all, but they couldn't let us have anything. They even denied us the fun of being a kid. And then they hide from us in their gated communities. We don't want you anymore until we need more money. Under baby boomer George Bush, the economy went to hell because of unregulated banks, a trend started by fellow boomer Bill Clinton. Taxpayer money was given to the very companies that caused the problem. And now they want our Social Security. They want our retirement money to invest in real estate. They buy their second homes in Florida while we can't afford even one. Your grandparents stole your future, kids. Think of that on your next day off from school and your parents drag you to the nursing home.